Dean of Students. A couple quick housekeeping things. One, stay hydrated, it's hot. And if you also just want to drink. There's that over there as well. We also have Hands That Rock in the back there. And they are providing massages for a suggested donation of $1 a minute. So feel free to use her services after the panel. So we just had a panel about the transition from short films to features. So what do you have next, of course? Film financing, because it's not always the case when you're making a feature film that asking for $100 from 300 of your most guilt-laden friends is enough to make the movie. Sometimes you actually need money, real money. Not just enough money to get a camera, but money to, I don't know, get an actor of note, post-production, effects, et cetera, or maybe you want to feed people. So our panel today, a whole bunch of people here to talk about money. I call them the big money panel. So live up to that, please, guys. And it is moderated today by Bayou Bennett and Daniel Lear. They are an award-winning husband and wife writer-director team who own the LA-based Dream Team Directors. They have partnered and created projects for top industry players such as Doug Claiborne, who's the exec producer of Fast and the Furious and War of the Roses, Nancy Cartwright, voice of Bart Simpson, and E.J. Johnston, exec producer of Fashion Star. Their company motto, "Let our dream manifest your dream," has allowed them to work with some of the highest profile and most influential companies and celebrities in the industry. That includes Adidas, MTV, Coldplay, Nickelodeon, Pete Diddy, I'm glad I got to say his name today, Smashbox Cosmetics, Atlanta Records, Chase Bank, Oscar de la Renta, Carolina Herrera, and more. They're inspiring and innovative films, music videos, and docs at one of our 12 international film festivals, and they have helped discover such stars as Matt Bennett of Nickelodeon's Victorious and Leah Michelle of Fox's Glee. Pretty good CV, I dare say. I'm going to hand the microphone over to them. Ladies and gentlemen, our big money panel of our moderates. Enjoy.
Thank you guys so much for being here. I'm specifically very passionate about financing because when I finished NYU Film School, they really didn't prepare you at all for how to actually be a filmmaker and make money at it, actually make this a career. So what we're trying to do today is empower you guys with some education from these incredible producers and industry veterans, and so that's what we're all about here today, is like some empowerment and education, giving you guys tools that you can actually go use when you guys are making your projects.
So, this is probably the best panel that you guys will, I'm just going to say, the best panel that you guys will be able to come to Holly Shorts, because you'll be able to, after this, probably figure out how you can go and make your films. Who wants to do that? Yeah, woo! Okay, good. So our first amazing speaker today is Stephan Paternot. He's the co-founder and CEO of Slated. How many of you have heard of Slated? Yeah, an online entertainment industry marketplace that enables introductions to projects, talent, financing, and sales. Stephan is also co-founder and chairman of Palm Star Entertainment. Founded in 2004, the film production company specializes in literary adaptations and true stories. Stephan is also the founder and general partner of Acturus Funds, founded in 2002. These angel funds have backed such companies as Lending Club, Second Market, Indiegogo, AngelList, and many more. Prior to this, co-founded one of the first internet community sites, theglobe.com, in 1994. The company set stock market history when it went public in '98, raising the value to over $1 billion. Over a 6-year span, the company grew to over 300 employees, with the website becoming one of the top 30 most trafficked sites in the world, with nearly 10% of all internet users visiting the site monthly. In 1999, Stephan won the Ernst & Young Entrepreneur of the Year Award. In 2001, published a very public offering, a nonfiction business book detailing his experience at theglobe.com. Before funding the company, Stephan attended Cornell University, where he earned a bachelor's degree in computer science. Stephan grew up in Switzerland, the UK, and we are so lucky to have him. So let's give him a big round of applause.
Oh, am I diving straight in?
You're going right in.
Can everyone hear me, or do I need a microphone? Mic? Is this better? Wow, okay, so it is really hot, and I'm going to be sweating here slightly. The good news is you can focus your attention on the screen instead of me. Now, forgive me if I'm not standing, but it's going to be a little unwieldy with a laptop and trying to reach it.
You want me to click for you?
No, that's okay, because I'm going to just go at a random pace here. So, before I dive in, I'm just curious here. Has everyone here done short films? Everyone, okay. How many people here crowdfunded them exclusively? Okay, how many people here didn't finance the film, self-financed it, or equity financing, or debt? Okay, more of you did the traditional way. How many of you have produced a feature film? A few of you. How many of you want to produce a feature film? Okay, that's an obvious one. And how many of you found that financing, whether crowdfunding or the traditional way, is really easy? All right. So, I'm an internet guy. I've been in the internet world for about 20 years, which means I started one of the first social networks, and I've had social networking in my DNA ever since, and thinking about how can the internet help solve this problem of the film industry. I think everybody knows that it is one of the most opaque and fragmented and difficult to navigate industries in the world. The film industry is very successful despite itself. And it doesn't have to be this way. So some partners and I had a thesis that the internet, if it was invented for anything, it was to help simplify this process, help to connect you to the right people, the right money, faster, get your film sold faster. So I co-founded this company a few years ago, Sundance 2012, and we decided to first focus our community on quality, not quantity, so we didn't want to start off by having everybody in the world signing up because everyone wanted to be a filmmaker, but rather we focused on people in the industry that we already knew. I had had about 10 years of experience being a co-founder of a film production company, Palmstar, and had learned the hard way what it's like being a producer. I produced a number of feature films, one of which went to Sundance, and our production company now has gone and made a ton of films. But that whole time I kept beating my head against the wall, wondering why is it so difficult finding the right people? How does one get to the talent when the agents are telling you maybe they've given it to the talent but probably haven't? How do you get to the right investors? Because every story is so unique that you need to find somebody who really believes in that one story, right? It's not one size fits all. You're not all just buying an iPhone, and therefore most people will say, oh yeah, I'll buy an iPhone. Here it's a unique, customized story. So how do you find that one or two or three right people that want to work with you or invest in your project, and they're somewhere around the world? Well, the traditional way has always been that you're going to travel, you're going to go to festivals, you're going to go to film markets, you are going to go to dinners, you're going to go to lunches, you're going to set up meetings, and this goes on and on and on for years, trying to get to the right few people. Sorry, I'm laying up all the reasons that we don't like about the film industry, but the good news is it's getting a lot easier. Like today's filmmaker has it much better than when I was producing 10 years ago, and I had it way better than people before me. But it's about to get a whole lot better, and not just because of Slated, but because of the countless companies that are out there that are helping. So Indiegogo and Kickstarter, of course, are the two best known brands in the world of crowdfunding. I'm going to be talking a little bit about the next evolution, which goes beyond crowdfunding, which is getting you in front of a market network. Okay, an industry-only market network where there are professional investors, whether it's equity or debt, where there are professional buyers, the distributors, the sales agents that are going to help sell your project to the distributors, the talent, the bankable talent, the people that can actually move the needle and get your project made. So that's an industry-focused business. And I might as well just dive right in, because I don't want to take too long.
Stephan, can you just make a really quick distinction between equity and debt? Because I think it's a really important
Yeah, so I mean, there's a lot of different types of financing you can get for a project. And I'm saying a project because this goes for film, it goes for television, and really the web and the TV are becoming the same thing. You're just making video content of different lengths, whether it's a series or a one-time feature. But all of them leverage different types of financing. So you have soft money, which is donations, it's grants. You have tax credits, which is whether it's government supported, like in Europe, where somebody will just write you a check for half the budget of your film because the government does that type of thing, or whether it's a tax credit in the US because a state wants to attract your business and will therefore finance 90 cents on the dollar of where you're spending your money because A, you're boosting the local economy and so on and so forth. And then you have equity, which is people wanting to own a piece for a potential return and get their name on the film and really feel like they're part of this. There's debt, which is the safer part, where someone will come in after you've raised the hard money for equity. They'll come in and say, well, we'll lend you the rest, but it's senior, so we get our money back first. But we won't get as much upside, so we'll just make a smaller return, but it's a lot safer place to be. There's the equity, which is all the risk, right? That's your family, your friends, and anyone who's a professional investor and really wants to own some upside. The equity is always the hardest to get. And I mean, in the soft money category, I think I mentioned crowdfunding, but that I don't think people often think of specifically as soft money, but it is soft money. But that's where you're engaging with your fans. It's a whole other type of financing, and it's really about community engagement and brand building. So Slated is not at all about crowdfunding, so it's about everything else. And typically, films raise about 10% of their budgets through crowdfunding. I don't know how many people know that stat, but aside from the 4 or 5 high-profile crowd-funded feature films that people have heard of, Veronica Mars one, the Zach Braff one, and so on and so forth, aside from those handful, 99.9% of films that are crowdfunded are $12,000 budgets, or at least its average $12,000 raises. Typically, that represents only 10% of the budget of the film. So when you sort of graduate from crowdfunding and you need the rest of your budget, or you've already done your first feature crowdfunded and now you really want to get into the business heavily, you need to engage with the industry. And that's where we come in and we help you take it to the next level.
Thank you, that was very
You're going
helpful.
to ask questions later? Or?
Yeah, at the end.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, we'll just have a Q&A at the end, guys, if that's all right.
Okay, so I'm going to try to go through this a little faster so I don't bore all the other panelists. Okay, so first of all, this presentation is one that I use to speak to filmmakers, but it's also to help educate people who are not in the film industry about how the film industry works. So you guys all know that the film industry is huge, but I wanted to put some actual data behind these statements. The entertainment industry, which includes cinema and home entertainment, is $335 billion a year and growing 5% per year. So every time we hear about theatrical in the US stagnating, well, in the US, theatrical is stagnating a bit. It's not really growing much faster, but it's exploding all over the rest of the world, in China and India specifically. And quite frankly, it's not about theatrical anymore, right? Theatrical represents about 40 billion and that's globally, out of the 335. So the real money is in what was television, but is really, Netflix, Amazon, and all the rest of it. It's in just making video content and series. So it's a huge industry, but it's got these huge problems. It's massively inefficient, and I think we've all experienced how hard it is to access the right type of people that can help move the needle for you. So again, the actors, or the director, the producers, the investors, the sales agents, the distributors, they're hard to get to. There's no real transparency in how deals are done. Every single deal in this industry is custom. You have to hire an attorney, they're gonna hire an attorney, you're gonna hire an attorney, the language won't be standardized, so there's a huge amount of spend in just trying to get your head around whether you even have a good deal or not. You can't really do an apples-to-apples comparison between films because, again, they're each done differently and everybody keeps it secret and they don't want anyone to know, and people get screwed because they didn't read the right fine print. The definitions of net profit are always the big joke. So in the end, there's this lack of transparency, and it ties into lack of transparency in data. Now, everybody uses IMDb, but how many of us here actually comb through the data, put it into Excel charts, and do statistical analysis on every single move you're gonna make? Can I just see a show of hands of how many people really do this? Okay, so you've been given this Bible of information that nobody has the time to go through. That's a problem, because a lot of the answers are staring you right out of the web page, but nobody has the ability to analyze it and interpret it. So Slated's core mission when we launched was to solve these 3 things, and these are not trivial. We are only a small fraction of the way to solving it. But making it easy to get to the right people was the first step that we did when we launched. So we invited in our first networks of people that we know. The first 1,000 people invited in the next 1,000. There was a bit of a walled garden. Not everybody could get into Slated, but we did that so that we could build trust, so that people could trust that when they got into Slated, there were few charlatans and few fraudsters and bad actors, and it's primarily a quality community. And that worked really well for us. But the problem is we got a lot of hate mail from people who couldn't get in. And we decided, well, our goal is not to focus on the people who have it easy. It's to help the people who don't have it easy. But first we wanted to build trust, so our brand started to stand out. And then we took down the walled garden by doing something a little bit controversial, which was scoring people. Now, I know that that usually freaks people out. Most artists have no desire to be scored. In fact, they can't be scored, they can't be understood. They're just artists. Well, we discovered that a lot can be scored to help the artist. And that, whether it's scoring material or scoring a person based on their track history, the industry scores you all the time. They just don't tell you how they're doing it, and it's very subconscious. You walk into a room, you have a meeting, they have a feeling about you, and once you've left or once they've read your script, they make a judgment call, right? They talk to their teams, they decide whether they like it or they don't like it. You've been scored. You don't know how you were scored, no one's gonna reveal that information to you, you just don't hear back from them. Or they give you the runaround forever. We decided how much more empowering would it be if we gave you the transparency so you can see how you score, you can see how you can raise your score, you can see how your material scores, you can see what you can do to raise the score of your material. And so that allowed us to take down the walled garden and let everybody in. And so we've grown quite a bit, but before I get to any interesting stats, what Slated helps you do is walk you through the entire life cycle of your film. So you list your film on the site. By the way, being part of Slated is free, listing your film is free. You can run analysis on your project, which is a standardized way of getting scored. And that's what allows people, investors specifically, to compare apples to apples. Which films should they get behind? You can find investors, you can find your cast and crew, all of this is free. You then go and produce your film, it's the one thing we don't do for you. And ultimately, you have lots of sales agents and distributors on the platform that are actively looking. Some distributors have gone and pre-bought rights to certain territories up front, which is exactly, by the way, that's another form of financing, is pre-sales, forgot to mention. But that's what notable films do that have strong teams. The teams have value abroad, so you know Brad Pitt's value in a given foreign market, and therefore you can, a distributor will pre-buy the rights to your film for France because Brad Pitt sells really well there. That applies, there's a scale for every single actor and director out there. Again, that's information you're not given as a filmmaker. Sales agents happen to know this, distributors happen to know this. We are now making this information available to you. And ultimately, the last piece that's very frustrating and you probably haven't experienced yet until you've made a film and sold your film is collecting revenue back. It's a major problem. And there's very selected companies that do this, and our goal will be to integrate that into the process of the site so that money can then flow back to you and you can just get on with being an artist and making your next film. So again, we're only, at the letters C or D here, and we gotta get to Z. So Slated is, we're very ambitious, it will help you a lot, but it will not solve all your problems yet, but we're trying. So we are a producer-driven marketplace, and nowadays most filmmakers are producers. Okay, no one has any excuse now not to think of themselves as an entrepreneur, as a producer. They're driving the ship here. So whether you're a writer or not, you're a producer if you want to see your script get made. And you have the power to do something about it now, whether it's crowdfunding or various sites that can help you get representation for your great writing, or being on Slated. You can go and set up your film and go and pursue people. So we have a lot of producers, but we also have writers, directors, actors. We're over 1,500 investors now. Sorry, these stats are a little out of date. But we're a community of quality. So we really focused again on making sure we had the Academy Award winners and nominees and Golden Globes, and making sure that the type of people you want to work with and that you need to reach out to are there. Now, they may not all respond to you because they don't know who you are, but they are there, and if you have great material, it'll stand out and they can find you. You don't want to be in a community where it's just the blind leading the blind, okay? Let's just all assume for a second, when we start in this business, we're blind. So the first thing you want to do, of course, is surround yourself with people less blind than you. Well, we're going to help you find people a lot less blind than you. And this is sort of a turbo boost to getting to that 1 or 2 key people you need that can make the difference. This year, I was very happy to see that over 2/3 of the films that got into Sundance and sold or won awards were from Slated producers. So we have broad market penetration. If there's someone you want to work with in this business, 2/3 chances are they're already on Slated. Now, I'm not talking about studio executives. We don't cater to the studios. The studios are vertically integrated. They're the ones who are just going to do their own thing for a long time until one day the internet takes over. But everybody else you want to work with, which are most of the films you've ever seen and that are winning the awards at the Academy Awards, are mostly independent films, whether you realize it or not. Even if it's a $50 million budget film, it's an independent film. So the people you want to meet are here. And part of what I'm going to be talking about today is something we're going to be launching this coming week. And it has to do specifically with financing, which is probably the reason I'm on this panel. But the question that everybody usually has is, well, how do I get financing? Or a lot of financiers in this business, by the way, who've backed a film want to reduce their risk by syndicating their risk. And what that means, this word syndicating is going to be coming up a few more times in the presentation. Syndicating means usually attracting a group of people to take a position in an investment. That's something that's very common in the world of tech investing. It's something that is used by very savvy people in the world of film finance and is not a term that's used by most people, but you're going to be hearing a lot more about syndicate film financing over the next 5 years. So with Slated, all the films that are listed on Slated have already attracted over $320+ million in production financing last year. Cumulatively, it's probably close to $1 billion in equity or debt or tax credits or whatnot. And most investors are always looking for the same thing. And what are those things? Well, we're going to get into them in a split second, but what we're using to help filmmakers starting next week is syndicate film financing, which is putting you in front of our investor networks for you. So what are all these investors looking for? This is what everybody knows instinctively. Isn't really something that has been stated as official, but essentially everyone's top of the mind question when they hear about a great film that's been put together is who's in it. Okay, well, and who's making it, so that you get a sense of the caliber of film that's going to be made. Then, of course, once those check off what you're interested in, it's how good is the script. Of course, every filmmaker believes they have the world's greatest script. So how do you really know and trust that yours is better, or at least worthy of somebody's attention for 5 minutes or 30 minutes? Because that's usually what you get when you meet a prospective investor. The elevator pitch, you have 30 seconds of their time. But if they are intrigued by who's involved already, or if the who's involved is not a name, but the script has a hook, it's got something that intrigues them, you got that 30 seconds. But of course, 30 seconds isn't enough, that's a concept, right? So ultimately, they need to see the goods, they need to see the full script, and they need to know it's good. And will this thing make money? Now, there's a lot of investors out there who are patrons of the arts and don't care about making the money back, they are just there to support a cause. And there are those who don't care about making their money back, but they won't really tell you that. What they really want is to just be involved, right? They want to meet the team, they want to read the script, they want to be able to brag when this thing gets made and wins an award or makes any money, they can feel good about it. And that's a perfectly legitimate reason. A lot of people invest that way. Same thing in Silicon Valley. Now, in Silicon Valley, people brag about their investment when it makes a huge return. No one brags about that tech company that bombs. Right, so the bragging rights go to high returns. Well, in the film world, the bragging rights really go to it got seen by everybody or it won awards. And those can be mutually exclusive. So people still will brag about a film that lost money because it was such an award winner. That's very unusual. No other industry in the world do people brag about something that loses money. So you got that going for you, and you should not play it down. You should not, you don't want to shit on anyone because their motives seem superficial. It doesn't matter. We're all in this to some extent because we want recognition. I mean, my God, this is the industry that's about that. So play off of that, leverage it. So we've developed a system that allows you to answer all of those investors' questions at a glance. Now, I quite frankly think these are answers that everyone should get, not just investors. You as a filmmaker should know how strong your package is, because you're going to be spending years of your life working on this project. And quite frankly, if your project doesn't score well, you'd rather know that right away so that you can get on with fixing it or finding another one. But spinning your wheels for 3 or 4 years with no one really telling you the truth, because they're your friends, they're your families, and they're just going to tell you it's good. It's not. We've all seen Whiplash. We all know those dangerous words of, good job. No, you don't want the good job pat on the back. You want the honest, objective truth, right? But how do you get the objective truth? You let a third party objectively quantify how good it is. A third party that's totally unbiased and that doesn't care. A third party whose job it is to look out for the investor. So we've developed something that's this package score. It will tell you how you score on an absolute 100-point level overall. How is that broken down? It's broken down by the strength of the team. Yep, because I told you guys we score people, which, as controversial as it was, now everybody on our site depends on it. We now, as of a month ago, have created a standardized way of scoring scripts. And before everybody freaks out and says that's the death of originality, we actually weight originality higher than everything else. But there's also 10 other criteria that goes into script analysis. It's not just about originality. We've all heard original ideas that just can't be executed well. And then there's your financial score. Can this thing make money? Now that is usually a system based on, well, how much is it going to cost to make, how much could it possibly make theatrically, how much could it make through television, and through any and all video exploitation. Have you factored in non-recoupable amount, tax credits and soft money, because that can really help boost your financial score. So these 3 things, this is our secret sauce. You don't need to worry about how we weight it and all that sort of stuff. That's a constant work in progress. We will never stop tweaking our algorithms. As the market evolves, we need to come up with smarter systems that leverage data from VOD, from streaming, and from every other source that can possibly exist. But our job is to make sure that this is elevating good material that can make money, and that will potentially help investors and distributors make a return, and therefore have them want to be repeat customers of yours. You want these people to come back and work with you, not just on your first film, but on the second, third, fourth, fifth. You want them to be in the business of you. So you need that first film to be a success. So, standardized team analysis. When you list your film on Slated, it will walk you through the process of adding all the key team members to your film. No, it's not about adding the gaffer and the boom operator and all those different things. It's about adding the key people that actually impact your package score. So, how does this industry measure that? Well, it's very simple. Your lead actor, producer, director, writer, sales agent, distributor. Some films already have a distributor before they get financed. Many don't. Some have a sales agent before they get going. Many don't. Some already have a director in place. Many don't. Some have a producer in place. Many don't. You start off with 0. So you're a writer. We're going to walk you through the process of adding those key people. And if you don't have them, there's an entire network for you to go find to attach that first person. With every single attachment you add, your score goes up. It goes up in part because, hey, a film profile that has a writer, a director, and any of these elements attached is worth more than a film profile that has nothing. But a film profile that has those elements attached and each of those elements has a high score is even better than one that has those elements with no score. So we guide you, we gamify the process to help teach you what you need to do to raise your team score high. And it's on a beautiful profile where you'll have your poster, your key art, your synopsis, all the key tags about your film type so that people can search and find exactly your documentary about energy in Germany, right? And find that one investor who's really into that. We've had films that were made in Hindi, all Indian cast and crew listed on the site and found an Indian investor, that one Indian investor that made the difference. So it doesn't matter what language or what culture or anything. If you need to find that one investor, you need an efficient matchmaking system to help you do that. So you've got your standardized team score. Then you've got your standardized script analysis. So what does this mean? Well, we identified 11 key criteria that I don't know if you can read if the print is too small here. I think it is too small. But it ranges from premise, originality, dialogue, structure, character, logic, conflict, tone, pacing, craft. Each of these is read by, we have a small army of professional former development executives / coverage people from the agencies, from management firms who have done nothing. Mostly these are people who are screenwriters, love writing, love reading other people's material. These are the people who judge your material every single time at an agency. Usually at an agency or at a company, one person reads it. Some person, some intern, reads it, gets put into their system. That one person isn't into comedy, good luck. If that one person isn't into horror, good luck. If they think it's original but not well executed, you're screwed. They write up an analysis, totally unstandardized. Their one opinion decides everything. We decided that there needs to be a minimum of 3 people, 3 professionals, with a diversity of gender, of ethnicity, who are basically running this like a double-blind study. So you don't know who these readers are, they don't know who you are. And the benefit is you get a completely objective analysis. Now, we put these people through a training program. We took all these professionals who know how to do coverage. We raised them up to a whole other level with a rubric that teaches you how to analyze things across these 11 different criteria and how to calibrate it against released films, because you are up against the best, right? It's not about you competing with other people from film school. You're competing against a theatrical window where there are countless studio films and countless top quality independent films, and nobody has time for your little independent film. So you have to compete with them. So we have rigorously analyzed 10,000 films, put them through our system, and looked at hundreds of released scripts to identify what those scores are and to make sure you're being calibrated against them. And the good news is, there's great talent out there. We have tons of unrepresented writers on our site, people making their first films, and we're seeing films scoring 75 plus on the script scale. This again is a 100-point scale. Getting 75 is excruciatingly difficult. The average score of released feature films that we see their script scores are about a 78, right? So if that's what the best can give, then you have a real shot. So go get yourself scored and you'll know very quickly where you stand. And then we have finally standardized financial analysis. I'm just gonna keep on sweating, so keep looking at the screen over there.
Stephan, we have a little less than 5 minutes.
Oh, for my piece or the entire?
Yeah, for your piece.
Okay, I'm gonna fly through this so fast now. Okay, so analyzed 10,000 films, came up with standardized metrics for gauging how films perform. There's no magic to this thing, it's just statistical probabilities of how your films will perform, and it'll teach you what you need to know so you can determine, based on your team score, your script score, your marketing budget, your production budget, where you stand and how much money your project will likely make. That helps guide investors. Okay, so what can you do on Slater right now? You can list your film, that's all free. You can get the analysis done, that's optional, but it does cost money to have these professionals analyze everything. There is human intelligence cost. But then ultimately you can network with all the investors on the site for free. If they start to track you, they show interest, great. Take it, it's all yours. We don't take any money from you, we don't take any money from anyone. That's how the first couple hundred features have been financed. And then there's something we're rolling out this week, whereby, based on this whole scoring system, if you score a 60 plus, we will offer you basically full service financing and syndication put you in front of the entire 1,500 investor network. This is like a rocket ship attached to your film. We will set up the legal framework for setting up the fund that can take the investors in. There's a construct where we can hold up to 100 investors, but what matters to you is you will only have to deal with one investor representative. And that is how you will raise money very fast. You just have to hit this benchmark of having a package score of 60 plus. The other requirements are that you have to have a financing score of 60 plus, and you have to be doing a minimum of $1 million raise. Because this is not an automated system, there is a lot of manual process that goes behind this. We will eventually automate this and allow films raising less money to do so. So this is the full service process. If your project scores a 60 plus, we will then handle all the outreaches to the investors. We will interact with the investors. You will be involved to the extent that you need to pitch them your vision. But ultimately, we will just line up the investors for you and get your film financed extra fast. And handle all the paperwork, the legal, the accounting, the back office stuff that goes with it that you don't want to deal with. So how do you get to 60 plus? Well, that's challenging, but it's not magic. You need to get a stronger team, which you can do through the site. You can improve your script, which, if you know how to write, great. If you don't, you can find other writers, and you can find script doctors. And you need to adjust your financial plan. Maybe your budget was too high. Maybe your budget was too low. Because if you have too low a budget, it usually restricts the quality of the film, and it puts you in a different category that never gets the wide release you want. So there's a lot of different financial parameters that can make a difference. Oh, okay, so good news, this is almost over. We have an educational series we run every single week, so if you need to learn more and hear other panelists speak, we do provide these weekly video tutorials where you'll hear from the pros on how they do things. And we have a lot of articles in our Knowledge Center that have been published, including our white papers, and our white papers are now taught in all the major film schools. So if you want to hear what are the latest trends, the best ways to raise financing or reach the right distributors or package your film, there's a ton of knowledge available online to go read. Sorry, my Slated pitch is done. It's a little bit too Slated-centric, but hopefully I can answer some more broad questions after.
That's Stephan, that was completely fascinating. I really I'm tempted to deal with some of the closed walls in this industry, and it's beautiful. Good job.
Thank you. Is there a paper towel? The light is really
Yes. We'll get you one.
Okay. Thank you. That was wonderful. Really great.
Thank you. Thanks for listening.
Absolutely. All right, so I'm going to move on because we have a little amount of time and a whole bunch of amazing information to learn today. So our next speaker is independent feature film producer Franco Sama. Boasts a remarkable and extensive history in public speaking, public relations, and a decade of independent film development, production, and financing. Sama has executive produced an impressive array of over 20 independent feature films, including most recently Guns, Girls, and Gambling, starring Gary Oldman. How many of you have heard of Gary Oldman? Yes. All right. Christian Slater and Dane Cook, which is quickly becoming a cult favorite. This film was released into theaters on December of 2012. January 2013 acquired a worldwide distribution deal from Universal Pictures. Other films Sama has produced include Black Limousine, starring David Arquette, Vivica Fox, Bijou Phillips, and a ton more. So I know we want to listen to what you have to say today, so he's one of my favorite speakers, so welcome.
Franco's going to talk about development, like the very beginning of your process, getting your script really in place, and how you need to have things in place to move to the next part, because it's all like, you have this right, then it flows naturally to the next part and the next part. So, cool. Hey, everybody.
Hey, hi. So,
Franco, do you want to take a step? Yeah.
So, Daniel, you guys both were in one of my classes, and one of the things I emphasize is development, because it's my experience, and this happened to me as well, is that a lot of people try to go, I call it from script to screen, I have a lot of writers, particularly writer producers, come to me, and they want to pitch projects, which is great, but they have a script, and they hand me the script, and they say, okay, I need $2 million. And I'm like, okay, so that's cool, but that's not how it works. So because there's a tendency to skip that entire step sometimes of the development. And to me, I'm sure you guys have all heard the adage that the more time you spend in post and in pre-production, the better your principal photography is, right? So it's the same thing with development. The more time you spend in development, then the better your pre-pro is going to go, and all the way down the line. So it's all about preparation and being ready. Because one of the biggest things that I notice is that producers tend to go out to investors too soon. They're not ready to be in front of an investor. And as you heard earlier, I've done over 20 some odd films, and one of the things that you were saying earlier about how there is no method, there is no systemization of it. It's really hard when you've got every single time you bring on a project. It's a whole different set of rules, it's a whole different set of people, a whole different set of lawyers, and everything just gets crazy. So until we're all making our movies through Slated, in the meantime, there's all of the stuff that's going on that people have to pay real close attention to, and it mostly is the development. Now, a lot of filmmakers don't like it when I say this, but a lot of the onus initially for development is on you, because in the world that I live in with the investors that I deal with on a fairly regular basis, they're interested in the project and interested in the writer or the script, but they're not interested in is taking on 100% of the risk. They usually want to share that risk with somebody else. And so my experience is that when I come into a project and I have some skin in the game, as they say, then my investors are much more interested in hearing what I've got to say. But the development process includes a lot of other people. It's basically about building team. Instead of being out there by yourself, you want to build a team. And that team would typically include somebody, for example, a line producer who's able to do your budgeting and scheduling. That's one of the things that has been a pet peeve of mine. I have people come to me all the time and they go, so here's my script. And I go, okay, great, well, what's your budget? They say, $3 million. And I go, oh, okay. So can I see your budget? And I go, oh, I don't have a budget, but I can make it for $3 million. So my first question then becomes, well, how do you do that? Where did you get that number? I'll tell you a really quick story. I was at a social sort of networking event, and I had been introduced as an executive producer. And this woman came up to me and she said, oh, so you're an executive producer? And I said, yeah. She says, I have this amazing project. I'd love to take a look at it. I said, oh, that sounds great. I said, what's your budget? She said, $10 million. I said, wow, $10 million. I said, that's great. Well, I said, unfortunately, that's not my cup of tea, because my sweet spot is 1 to 3. That's what I basically do. I like to keep my budgets low because I like to pay my investors back sooner than later. And the very next thing she said was, oh, there's no problem. I can make it for 3. And I literally couldn't believe what I heard. She dropped $7 million in a single conversation. And it's things like that, that drive prospective investors away, because it's an indicator that you really don't know what your movie can and would should be made for. So, and the same thing when it comes to attaching talent. You're going to attach talent, you need to know how many days and what the schedule is going to be so that you can make some kind of a reasonable offer. If you're going to get an actor like Gary Oldman, you got to know what you're doing. You need to be able to go up there and offer him to get it in and out in 2 days, and you got to make it worth his while. And the truth is, somebody like Gary isn't going to do a movie, and we all know that Gary Oldman doesn't get out of bed for less than $5 million, right, to do a project, unless he really, there has to be a reason for that. And in our case, the whole budget was $3 million. So to be able to put that kind of a deal together with a named talent like that, you really have to have a thorough understanding of what your budget is, how much you can afford, and whether you're going to pay all of that out of the budget, or maybe there's a deferment, or there's other ways that you can pay the actor later on. So having a budget and a schedule is critical before you move forward. And that said, then there's bringing in a casting director or a production attorney, somebody who's going to take that offer that you make to that actor and really break it down, because I might be able to make an offer for $350,000, but I might not have $350,000 in the budget. I might only have $200,000. So now I have to figure out how to break that down and do a deferment to be able to pay some of it back later, and I need a production attorney to do that. And then the other thing that I do personally is I bring in the foreign and the domestic distribution representatives. Even if they're not necessarily going to take your movie to market, I bring them in as a consultant, because one of the things that we're going to look at, you saw the very first question was who's in your movie, right? And that's going to matter a lot, because who you have in your movie and how those actors translate into the foreign market is perceived as collateral for a potential investor. So as soon as I see that there's an actor that comes in, like for example, let's just go back to the Guns, Roses, and Gimli movie. We had Christian Slater, Danny Cook, Chris Kattan, Powers Booth. We have a really great cast. And the truth is, when you look at the potential revenue returns, we probably would have had to make that movie with that cast for around $1.5 million. But then you introduce a Gary Oldman into the equation, and all of a sudden your budget's able to double. And the reason your budget is able to double is because your sales are going to increase significantly on the other side. So everything is relative. So my advice is to really stay focused on that development process. Yes, it costs money. You can't go out there with no money, because with no money, you're going to be in a situation where you're asking people to help you by doing you favors, which is only going to last so long. Because sooner or later, even if people are willing to come on board and help you, at some point, if this thing goes on and on and on, and it could potentially do that, you're going to be in a situation where they're going to get an opportunity to take another gig that's paid, and all of a sudden, you're going to be back to where you started from, because everybody that was helping you disappeared, because they're all off working on jobs where they're getting paid. So raising development money is crucial. I have a personal rule of thumb, which is $25,000 per million of budget. Because my budgets tend to be $3 million and under, we can usually get away with between $25,000 and $50,000. I think the most I've ever spent was around 40, and that includes travel and all those other things that you may need if you're going to go out, if you want to go out and meet investors face to face, which is one of the things I tend to do, or to bring them here to Los Angeles. But whatever the case may be, having a little bit of development money is definitely going to make a big difference. The other thing I tell producers often is, open up that bank account and get it open. Open up your LLC in the name of the movie, and then open up a bank account in the name of that LLC. Because if you came here tonight and one of these guys wanted to write you a check today for $500,000 for your movie, you got no place to put it. There's nowhere to write a check because that organization isn't set up yet. So I like to get filmmakers to start off early, open up the LLC, set up the bank account, so that there is a place for the universe to receive the money that's coming. And then you can start building from there. But the first $25,000 is usually friends and family money. But you got to remember, a lot of this stuff comes from the fact that I started a long time ago, before there was ever such thing as Kickstarter. I think Kickstarter and those sites are great because they replace the old way of the way we used to do things. The way we used to do things is raise the $25,000 from a person, a friend, or family, and then we repay that money back as a line item out of the budget, plus 20%. So if somebody gives me 25 grand towards a film, they're going to get the movie back before we even start shooting. Now, that said, they're not an equity investor at that point. So they're not theoretically entitled to any ownership. And for that matter, they're really not entitled to any kind of credit. That said, we've been known to give somebody in special thanks or some kind of a credit, or maybe an associate producer credit, but at the end of the day, it really is just a loan to get you, on your feet and to start building the process of putting yourself in a position to be able to raise money with investors. So I spend the vast majority of my day on both sides of that equation. I do have a group of sort of, I would call it a consortium of investors, and different strokes for different folks. So some people want some things and some people want others in terms of what gets them excited. I have 2 or 3 investors that I go back to over and over again because I have a sense now of exactly what they want. Just this past week, we closed a deal with a former investor. So it's really about understanding who your investors are. And you said something interesting that I often say too, is know who your investor is. There's 2 kinds of investors, or there's really 3 in my experience. There's the one that I call the ROI guy, right? When all they care about is how much am I going to get, when am I going to get it, I don't care about anything else. And then the other one I call the red carpet investor, which is what you were referring to, that they just want to be on set, and they want to be at the premiere, and they want to rub elbows, and they want the bragging rights. And then there's the hybrid, which is that sort of half and half, which are my personal favorites. I like to work with those guys because they're really interested in the money aspect of it, and they want to make money, and they also want to have some fun, and those are people that I enjoy working with the most.
What about the person who wants to have someone move the theater?
Well, actually, it's funny because we just did that just like literally 2 days ago. He said, "What about somebody who just wants to be in the movie?" You know, I've had 2 or 3 experiences where that's come up. Well, so here's the thing with that. I had there's the movie David Arquette, Vivica Fox. It was then called The Land of the Astronauts. That was the movie we made. The distributor changed the name, so it's now called Black Limousine. But in any event, The Land of the Astronauts, we were in that situation. We had a $120,000 pre-sale, and we were from Latin America, and we were looking to raise the rest. We only made that movie, I think, for $650,000, and we shot it here in LA. And so, yeah, there was a woman, and she wanted to be in the movie, and unfortunately, she wanted to play the lead. And unfortunately, she just, in this particular case, wasn't lead material. And so she came in and she auditioned, and it just wasn't going to work. But there was another role that we believed she would be perfect for. We asked her to come back and interview for it, and she did. And she was spot on for that role. And because of that, we were able to put the deal together. Well, she ended up putting up the entire $500,000, which brought us to the $650,000 or whatever that we needed to make the movie, and we made the movie. So the moral there of the story is, if she hadn't been appropriate for the movie, we wouldn't have been able to do it. That said, we might have been able to offer a really small part, but then she probably wouldn't have wanted to do the deal on her end. So it really comes down to that. But look, that's part of the crazy of this business, is that if those offers come up, we've done it before. But you have to be careful in that situation. So anyway, the moral of the story for me, to pass the mic down, is that development is critical. Spend the time there. Focus on figuring out how to make that happen so that you can be able to go out there the right way. Same thing with the script. You know, this is why I love Slated so much, because that's one of the biggest critical problems we have, is that people bring the scripts, and the scripts just aren't ready. They're not ready to go anywhere. And I do the same thing. I send it off for coverage, and the coverage is one person's opinion. And then I got a writer going crazy because they think they've got to rewrite the whole thing from page 1 because one person that they don't know, and sometimes I don't even know, had an opinion. So, I think the wave of the future is this guy. I really believe that. I'm so excited that Slated exists.
Yeah.
I'm really happy about it. I think as collective here, that is the way to go for the future. And it certainly eliminates a lot of the problems. It provides solutions for a lot of the problems that people like me have faced for the last 10, 15 years. And I'm a proud member, and take it from there.
Great.
Thank you so much, Franco.
All right, are you guys learning a lot? Yeah, all right, we've got more. So we have a treat today here. Fielder Jewett is our next speaker. He's from Super Crispy Entertainment, founded by producer Jonathan Swartz in 2008. It is an independent production and what? There we go.
Yeah.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay, good. It is an independent production and financing company based out of Santa Monica, California. Over the last 6 years, Super Crispy has produced some of the most renowned independent feature films and won numerous awards at international film festivals, including Sundance, Cannes. It is known for supporting some of the best young directors, including Drake Dormus, Like Crazy, Breathe In, and James Ponsoldt, Smashed, as well as working with master filmmakers such as Peter Weir, The Way Back, and Michael Haneke, Funny Games. Super Crispy focuses on quality, auteur-driven material, and top-notch talent. Some of the fantastic artists Super Crispy has worked with Jennifer Lawrence, Felicity Jones, Mark Ruffalo, Naomi Watts, And then we've got a whole list here and more, and I can keep going. Super Crispy continues to seek out promising talent and support filmmakers from around the world. Woohoo, that's us.
Well, I'll try not to repeat too much of what these guys said, because what I'm going to address is the development process, which really is the most important part of raising money and making an appealing package for investors. And the best place to begin in that kind of saga is at the very end, which is your movie premiering at a festival, and kind of filmmakers' expectations for the films that they have in mind. And we get a lot of projects that people pitch and they say it's just like Me and Earl and the Dying Girl. It's sold for $12 million at Sundance, and they say you can easily make it for $5 million, and we'll sell it for $10 million, no problem. It'll premiere, everyone's gonna love it, they'll get great reviews, and then I'm gonna become a famous director, and we all make money and laugh and have a great time. But if you look at the numbers, that is not only the exception, it is the incredibly 1 in a million diamond in the rough exception. I think something like 2,000 films were submitted to Sundance last year. Feature films, they play maybe 50 to 60, maybe 10 of those go on to sell. 5 of them go on to actually play in theaters. 2 of them people actually hear of. You can ask a person on the street and say, have you heard of this movie? Odds are they haven't. So our attitude at Super Crispy is that the best way to have to maintain high quality and have a sustainable business is to get the most out of every penny. So it's a lot easier to raise $1 million than it is to raise $5 million. And the goal at the end of the day is quality. So how do you get as much quality out of $1 million as you can out of $5 million? And like these guys are saying, the key is development and making an appealing package and putting together a group that people believe in. And that way, ideally, you only have to raise $1 million, which shouldn't be too hard. I mean, it's definitely not easy, but it can be done, and there's no reason why you can't make it a high quality project for $1 million. So I think the best way to kind of talk about how our company came about is to go back to the origin. It started by Jonathan, who worked in development in more kind of studio-oriented movies, trying to get $30 million movies made, buying and selling book rights, trying to, option material that was, coveted and expensive and, destined to become a big expensive period piece, and got sort of disillusioned by projects coming about and then slowly falling apart, coming about, falling apart, coming about, falling apart, raising some money, losing it, raising half the budget, people losing interest. So he finally decided to set on his own and started Crispy Films, and said, I'd rather just make movies for nothing than develop things indefinitely that never get made. So that was how it started. And the first movie we made was called Spooner. It was made for around $100,000. It had Matthew Lillard, who's a name, and was directed by a director that we had met at a festival, at a pitch fest sort of like this, who just gave an appealing pitch, talked about his art well, talked about his vision well, and we believed him and said, you know what, we can put $100,000 for the movie and see how it works out. The movie was well reviewed, played in good festivals. We went on and made another movie with him for $60,000 called Douchebag. That was 2 non-actors, mostly improvised dialogue, played in Sundance, also well reviewed, gained the director some notoriety, and they said, okay, now you're starting to get a little bit of traction, let's go on and make another one, we'll put a little more money into this one. And we made one called Like Crazy, which was $250,000.
Great film.
Which was very well reviewed and went on to win the jury prize at Sundance and sold for $4 million. So if we made the movie for $4 million, then everybody, we would have broken even. The unions would have made their money, everyone would have gotten their salary, but we made it for $250,000, so there's profit, and that kind of kept the company afloat. And that's sort of where the sustainability comes in. So from there on out, instead of getting a lot of, it's easy to kind of let your ego get out of control and say, now we really know what we're doing, let's go make a $10 million movie and it's going to be amazing. One of those can totally tank your career as a producer. You lose $10 million, your investors forsake you forever. That's the end of it. We had no interest in that because we had good relationships with the investors we work with, so we decided to just keep making the movies the way they've been going and working well. So, $500,000, $2 million, and we were able to work with name talent, Aaron Paul, Mary Elizabeth Winstead, Jennifer Lawrence was in Like Crazy, Felicity Jones was just nominated for an Oscar, Guy Pearce, But the question then is, how do you get these people on board? How do you get them to trust you and work for SAG Scale and be in a movie that costs, $750 million? So that's kind of where development comes in for us. We always push our filmmakers to surround themselves with people that are going to elevate the script, elevate the project, and challenge them every step of the way. So we tend to do between 15 and 20 drafts with the writers and directors that we work with, really push every single point and always ask why. The real important question when you're putting together a film and pitching to investors is, why are you making this film? Even more so than who's going to see it. Because if you can explain why you feel like this movie needs to be made and why somebody should give you $1 million, which people easy to forget is a lot of money in any other scenario, you need to be able to answer those questions. So, in our case, the development process is sort of ongoing up until we're on set. We bring on actors, we ask for their input, they tell us what they like about it, what they don't like about it, if they think something seems cheesy or phony or unlikely, then we try and find a way to work around it. You bring on a DP who says, this is going to work, do it this way, or try it this way, or try thinking about it this way, and then so we just hope that that's the key, is to create a team that challenges itself and to try and figure out and make sure that everybody's on board with the project and they're working on it because they want to be a part of it. It's not a paycheck for them. We don't work with anybody who is just looking to get paid and add something to the resume. We want to make sure that you're working with people who care about the project, have a specific point of view, are working on it for their own reasons, and are not cynical about the whole process. So we've been lucky so far. I've done about 6 movies at Super Crispy, and all of them have sold and been released and played at premiered at major festivals. So it can get done, but you really have to push yourself, and the process is never complete. So I guess if you're looking for advice, mine would be to always question every single aspect of the project. Figure out how you can make it for the smallest amount of money so you can actually make it, so you can actually get it made, and figure out how to make it a relatable and accessible story that other people are going to want to work on, and it can get done. And it often does. So just keep persevering, and just keep pushing yourself.
All right, it's so hot in here because our speakers are so hot today, right? Okay, woo! Now let's give them another round of applause. All right, so our next speaker, Burton Richie, CEO, is a film producer and lifelong successful serial entrepreneur. His producer or executive producer credits include Lowdown, 2014 Sundance winner, Best Cinematography, Copenhagen, great film, 2014 Slamdance winner, Audience Award, Welcome to Me starring Kristen Wiig and James Marsden, Eating Animals, a documentary starring Natalie Portman about ethical treatment of animals, and others. Burton is a passionate advocate for sustainable energy. He also serves on the Ambassador Council of the Gina Davis Institute on Gender and Media, and is an outspoken supporter of gender equity, civil rights, and LGBT rights. So let's give him a big hand.
Thank you. First of all, great input from from everybody so far. I have almost nothing new to add in terms of content. What I do have a little bit to add, I hope, is in terms of viewpoint. You know, the name of my company is Heretic. It wasn't an accident. We don't believe in dogma. And the nice thing about film is that there are, you know, as everybody has said in different ways, 800,000 ways to skin the cat. And out of all the things I've heard thus far, the most valuable, I think, would be that chances are, if you're honest, your movie's gonna lose money. Every single independent film, chances are, is gonna lose money. That's a fact, statistically speaking. You may have the shining jewel as the exception, but if you go into things looking at that viewpoint, then every other assumption and decision you're going to make is going to be flawed. You know, in our company, we talk a lot about heuristics. You know, heuristics are the shortcuts that we use to make decisions based on, you know, what amounts to, you know, common knowledge. And the common knowledge, you know, the thing that Steph said at the beginning that I thought was just absolutely brilliant is how perfectly inefficient the film industry is, and how most of the people that are making money here have a huge vested interest in making sure it stays that way. You know, so, you know, to me, this film business is all about the relationships and being able to be a little more honest and a little more accurate than the people next to me when I'm telling them what's going to happen, because chances are these films are going to lose money. More of my films have lost money than haven't. Now, the thing that allows me to go back to some of the same producers, some of the same investors over and over again, is I've told them accurately what their chances of losing money are. And, you know, another thing that I've heard at least two of you say, you know, is, you know, the different motivations for people. I think the 3 categories is a good starting point, but it can be broken down a lot more deeply there, and finding out really, you know, divining what those people's motivations are, because they don't know how to be honest. Most people are blissfully unaware of their own motivations, and to that end, if you haven't read Predictably Irrational by Dan Ariely as a filmmaker, you need to put it on your must-read list. It has nothing to do with film. It has everything to do with why we make the mistakes we make over and over and over again. And if you can just avoid a couple of those, then you'll be head and shoulders above the people that you're competing against. And I'm just, so much good stuff, so I'm kind of all over the map here. Please bear with. Another thing that's really a byproduct of this industry, and I don't know if this statistic is true or not, but it's one that I use to describe this industry to people that are thinking about putting money into it, is that most producers are first, second, or last time producers. Judging by the laughs there, I'm thinking there might be some truth to that. And the thing is, this industry doesn't have to be about who you know. It can be about what you know, but who you know sure as hell helps. You know, coming to these things, you know, finding somebody who's willing to champion you as a person that gives you a little bit of an insight into the industry, whether it's an agent, whether it's an actor, whether it's a director, another producer, really valuable, because, and this goes to a side effect of the previous thing, most of the things that I've heard, and I've had the good fortune to have some money to throw at this industry to learn, and a background in building independent businesses, and each film is an independent business, is that most of the things that I hear in this industry, not what I heard on this panel, is wrong. It's just wrong. And whether it's wrong because people are, you know, trying to scam themselves, or whether it's because they're incompetent, really is irrelevant. Dishonesty and incompetence look exactly the same. And when everybody in Hollywood is talking about how great this is and how great that is and how they're different, then you have no way of actually differentiating yourself through what you say. You know, for good or for bad, I'm on the autism spectrum, so I don't believe anything anybody says anyway. I believe in what they do. You know, and that leads to Burton's first 12 artifacts. Which, a little side note, bear with me for a second, because this is one of the most valuable things that I've done in my film industry experience, is my mouth was wired shut for about 6 weeks when I was 24 years old. I had a big jaw surgery. And I'm started talking like this, and people ask me questions all the time. And so I got sick of it, I just started lying. You know, how'd that happen? Mike Tyson punched me in the casino. And it doesn't matter what I said, the more outrageous it was, people would believe me, because I had the artifact that had gotten their attention, made them ask me a question. You know, and I studied this for a while, and I started learning about the amygdala. I won't bore you with the academic part of that, but the bottom line is, if you've got something that is about you or what you do that makes people ask you a question, the door is now open. And now this is your deal to lose. Whereas if you're going up to people trying to give them the elevator pitch, trying to give them the business card, trying to get their attention in a world where most of the people that try and get their attention are either incompetent or dishonest, you've got a big leg up. So, really think of, and the flip side, the first corollary of Burton's Law of Artifacts is, if you give somebody a false artifact and they never find out about it, the old alligator brain kicks in and they will try to kill you. Professionally, in any way possible. So make sure that you don't leave any false artifacts laying around, because your artifacts need to be consistent with your reality. And that's very important. So who you're known by is really important, and there's a lot of people in this industry that you can choose to do business with because they might be able to get it done. And incidentally, you'll never know why. You'll never know how you were judged, but that might be the last time you ever get to make a movie because of who you chose to make that movie with. And I see that happen all the time. I've been fortunate enough to, run across, that's not exactly true. I've been very fortunate, but I've also really put in the footwork doing a lot of, sitting in your side of this panel, going up and actually talking to people about, what it is that matters to them. Because once you start talking to people about what matters to them, then you find areas of commonality. And it's only in those very narrow overlaps of commonality where it's possible to really make magic happen. And we're in a magical business. We get to play pretend for a living if we're any good at it, and get to do it over and over again. That's awesome. Find people who still have that viewpoint, and haven't completely become, jaded. I don't remember which one of you guys said that, but once people get jaded, then the fun's out of it, and then you might as well make the $30 million movies because you're sure not going to have a good time doing it. You might as well get paid. Another thing that I really respect Slated for is that they are looking at the ways in which this system is right now, I could say slanted, I could say tilted, I could say broken. The independent filmmaker right now is getting screwed more than anybody else in Hollywood, and that's a distinction previously allocated to talent, but now it's gone into the independent filmmaker as well, because most independent filmmakers don't have the ability to know how to leverage any possible distribution they get before they've got their movie put together to, their different types of money that they can attract. They don't have all that information. And what Slated is doing is really awesome that it gets that done. But my take on that is what I like to tell people about Half Hams. It comes from a little story about a girl who's helping her mom, make Thanksgiving dinner, and could be a boy, could be a boy. She says, hey, make sure you cut the ham in half before you put it in the oven. The little girl goes, why? And she goes, I don't know, go ask Grandma, she's the one who taught me. And she says, Grandma, why do you cut the ham in half before you put it in the oven? She goes, what are you talking about? She says, Mom said you taught her to cut a ham in half before you put it in the oven. And grandmother just started laughing. She goes, we used to live in base housing. We had an oven that wasn't big enough to hold a ham. and the point of that story is that most of the things that I see people doing over and over and over again stopped being efficient a long time ago. They stopped making sense a long time ago. And there's so many different ways to do this now. There's so many ways for the soap bubble to be shaped that if you accept my truth or his truth or her truth, without actually looking to see what you can do there, if you're making a movie, like what was it? Ass Backwards, not Ass Backwards. Yeah, Ass Backwards. Ass Backwards about sculling. Go find people that skull. Get them to give you your money. The people will care. If you're making a movie about Wall Street, go hang out on Wall Street. If you're making a movie that's talent-driven, go hang out with talent. And then, of course, there's another thing if you haven't read it, and how much time do I have? Okay. The language of an industry, the lingo of an industry is really, really important, the jargon. I can't tell you how many times I'll go sit down with a director or a longtime producer in this industry, and I'll talk to them about senior debt, and their eyes kind of glaze over. And they say, what's that? Like, you made 15 movies, how do you not know what senior debt is? That's your advantage. If you learn those things now, you've got an advantage over people that have been doing this a long time. And to that end, I strongly recommend you immediately go buy both of Christine Vachon's books. She really talks about what it's like to make an independent film, and now that Ted Hope's over at Amazon, I think she's got a unsurmountable lead as the most prolific film producer and independent film of all time.
How do you spell that last name?
Bachon, B-A-C-H-O-N.
Killer Films.
Killer Films, yeah. She's incredible. And her films will illustrate that you can have low budget and quality and value.
Can you define senior debt for the audience?
Yeah, so fundamentally, and Steph, is it Steph or Stephan?
Either.
Okay. Stephan, talk about that a little bit, but fundamentally, you can break most films down into the profit side between people that put in equity and the producing side. And out of the people that put in equity, if the amount of equity is shrunk by taking out loans so that the people who actually are taking the risk, then the people who are taking the loans, as he said, are lower risk, but the people who are putting in the investment stand to make a lot more. There's different kinds of debt. It's not all senior debt. You can do debt. We just did a film where there was a little bit of debt, but that it pari passu. There's another phrase you need to put in. It means coming out at the same time. Where it was coming out at the same time is the equity. So they had a corridor. There's 1,000 ways to do that, but fundamentally, senior debt means you get paid first, or that your investor gets paid first. And I lost my train of thought. So the real
terms.
Sorry?
Knowing the term.
Knowing the terms. You'll learn, read, study, because it's going to be a lot easier for you to gather information right now than it is contacts until you get out and start making films. Once you start making films, man, I tell you what, don't be the person who goes in and has this great conversation with this great distributor and is too shy to ask for their phone number. That's stupid. Get the phone number. Always ask for the phone number. They might not take your call, but I guarantee you they're not going to call you unless you get their phone number. So, I'll just wrap it up by saying, the most important thing I've done is to not give any of my filmmakers, whether that's talent, whether that's finance, whether that's other producers, whether that's casting directors. So far, we've been able to do what we do without telling lies. It's okay to fail. It's not okay, in my book, to fail and think that you were going to succeed. It's okay to take a swing for the fences and miss, as long as you know that you weren't trying to bunt. I'm not a sports guy, I hope that makes sense. Thanks.
I think that was really important. The honesty aspect of this game is important. Like, I find that people just go out there and they tell lies. I have this person attached and this thing attached, and they don't. It's just, it really comes back to bite you.
No other industry like it. Never seen it anywhere else.
All right, so least but not last, we have Devak Shah. He is currently an analyst with Blue Lake Media Fund, a film fund managed by Los Angeles-based Echo Lake Entertainment and Toronto-based Blue Ice Capital Group. Devak is in charge of greenlight modeling and deal analysis for multi-million-dollar equity and gap investments. Devak also manages the fund's distribution business, reviewing films for acquisitions in multiple territories, managing relationships with distribution partners, and researching and analyzing new international territories to enter. Prior to joining Blue Lake, Devak was a senior analyst at Film Nation Entertainment, where he worked in international distribution and strategy. Devak graduated from NYU with a degree in drama and economics. Let's give him a big hand here, guys.
So I'll probably be repeating some stuff that other members of this panel said, but I'll try to go into more detail than maybe they said. So what I want to talk about today is, one, how to kind of present your film to a financier, what a financier is looking for, and also the economics behind film financing and the economics that an investor would want. So we kind of mentioned there's three types of financiers in this business. I like how you said the ROIers. These are the guys who are going to be providing the debt deals or going to be doing the studio slate deals. They really just care about the money and that their money is safe and they're going to get it back. And if it's a low return, it's fine. We'll do hundreds of these deals. Then there's the people who, I guess this might be a little mean, but who we call dumb money, which they're not dumb. They just don't really care about the economics of film. They just want to be at the parties or be a producer on film or just be a part of the business because they really enjoy it and they have money to spend on it. And then there's the people who, like you said, are the hybrid. And that's where where Echo Lake and Lake Media Funds fall in. The people who are doing the single picture financing deals, that's a mixture of equity or gap financing. I'll get into more of those terms and what they mean exactly. And who really also care about film, really care about the filmmaker, and really want to make great film, whether it's a great horror film or a great drama, prestige film. They really care about the end product as well as making a profit on it so they can invest in more films. So basically, and he was right, most films lose money. It's a fact. So a financier who really cares about actually getting a return is going to be very specific on what they're looking for and what model works best for them. So every financier is different. Some financiers will say, I'm only going to do a certain type of genre. So they're only going to do low-budget horror films, like Blumhouse. Even though they have a studio deal with Universal, that's their specialty. Those are the types of films that they like to finance. Then there's a type of companies that say, we do really well with movies that have great cast, doesn't matter the genre. Or they're going to say, we do films where 50% of the financing is made from getting tax credits from abroad. And we only do those type of films because the economics on that work really well for us. Echo Lake, we really like films that have lots of international value and where we can really leverage the pre-sales. That's what we kind of look for. And we also look for films that are good. Like the drama films, the prestige films, the adult-oriented films. These are the films we really understand as producers and filmmakers. So we really like to invest in those type of films as well. So basically, here's what we look for: the qualitative stuff, the script. Do we like the script? Very simple. Is it a good read? Do we, as a company, like it? Is it something that we'll spend 2 years on and make it into a film and collect the money and invest in and whatnot, all the crazy stuff that goes into it. The second is the attachments. Who's the director? Who's the producer? Film investing is a lot like venture capital. Every film is different. So you can't look at a past film and say it did this much money, so I think my film is going to make this much money. Every single film is different. So we can't really say, dramas with this cast or this type of cast do this much money, so mine will too. So that's a really wrong logic to look at as a financier. We want to look at as a financier is, how do I hedge my risk? How do I lower my risk as much as possible? So looking at the attachments, for us, why we care so much about attachments is how much pre-sales can we get from international. Now what this pre-sales means is basically going out to an international distributor, like someone in the UK, and selling the script with the attachments to them for a certain amount of money. So what we do is we go out to Film Nation, who we have a first look deal with. Film Nation is an international sales agent. And we'll give the script to them, if we like the script and we want to move forward. We'll give the script to them and say, all right, here's the script, here's the director, here's the producer, here's the cast. And they'll say, okay, you know what, we can sell this movie for $5 million in raw. And we'll say, okay, it's a $10 million budget, and they're raising financing from these other sources, which I'll get into later. So, okay, now we can move forward to the next step. Like, there's some international value here where we can kind of hedge our risk. The next step would be, okay, who's the producer, who's the director? Have they made a good film? Are they competent? Again, it's like venture capital. In venture capital, you care a lot about the management team and have they actually created a successful company before? In this case, have they created a successful film before? Are they trustworthy? Have there been reports of them not being good on set? Do they go over the budget a lot? Do they not, does the director not really have a vision for these type of films? Is this director really a horror director and we have a drama film and it's not really going to translate? So we want to look at all those factors as well. These are all very qualitative factors. So that's kind of the qualitative stuff. The quantitative stuff now is really, all right, how is this financing model looking? One, where are these producers raising their money from? If I'm an equity financier, usually equity financiers will invest last because they want to know that all the other financing sources are in place. So a financing source could be Kickstarter, or any other type of social media type funding where you don't have to give the money back. Tax credits, grants. These are all things like he mentioned called soft money. Then you could have debt, either from a bank or a private lender. So debt you primarily raise against pre-sales or tax credits, if that makes sense. So basically a bank will look at how much tax credits or pre-sales you're going to get once the film is delivered. So remember, your pre-sales or tax credits, they don't actually pay you until you deliver the film or the film is made. So you have to go and get financing raised against it. So basically, a bank will say, okay, if you have $5 million in pre-sales, I'll lend you $3 million against those contracts, and I'm going to charge you, a bank will usually charge about 3 to 4%. A private lender who might not need as much paperwork, or again, poor, like a bank would require, they might charge a little bit more. So that's how you kind of basically, that's where your debt financing comes from. Then you have gap financing. So gap financiers are really people who lend against unsold territories. That's what they like to do. Now, it's a little bit riskier than debt, or what a bank would do, because your pre-sale is already completed, you already made the sale, and there's just a collection risk on those sales. Whereas in gap, there's actually a sales risk, a sales performance risk. So a company like Film Nation still has to go out and promise and actually complete the sales for how much they promised. And gap will usually recoup their investment in the waterfall after a debt financier. And they'll usually charge about 12 to 15%, depending on the gap financier and how risky it looks. Then finally, you have your equity financier. So your equity financier is really investing in the upside. What is the upside? It's the sale in the US, because films are very, very rarely sold, pre-sold to the US distributor. They're almost always sold after the film has been made, and it's either in competition or the agents have been showing the distributors the completed films from their clients. So that's a really big upside that the equity financier is investing against. And also another upside is overages. So this is really your performance-based income. So when you sell your film to a distributor, you're not only selling it for the amount of pre-sale value that you're getting for it, which we call a minimum guarantee, but you're also selling it, if the film overperforms, you're also entitled to more money on the back end. So there's very crazy royalty scheme structures for every single international distributor and every US distributor here, where you can get more money on the back end. So an equity financier would also get more money in that back end scenario. So that's basically the economics of it. That's a very crazy kind of way to finance your film. I know there's a lot of different things that we went through.
Yeah, we don't really, in independent films like between 500,000 and $1 million, we don't really have pre-sales so much where you're actually, getting money for your film before you actually make it. You're going out with a sales agent and selling it to different territories, whether it's China, Japan, Latin America. So that's what he means by pre-sale, but it's not so clear.
Yeah.
So then when you get those contracts from those different territories, then a bank will lend you money based on you having a contract to sell to these different territories. And this is all before you've made your film. Does that make sense? Okay.
Thanks. Yeah, I'm usually talking about budgets that are a little bit higher than the real budgets that we've been talking about. And one other point that I just want to kind of end on is that film financing is a really circular process. It goes through a lot of emotions. I mean, you'll start with, let's say you have a $10 million film and you are trying to raise financing for it. So the first thing you look at is, okay, I'm shooting this film in Europe and I can get $5 million of tax credits from it. Okay, great. I have a small cast, but I can still sell them, pre-sell them for $2 million. So, after the bank financing and everything, I already raised $7 million. And then you're going to go out and look for an equity financier for $3 million to kind of to finance that shortfall. But every equity financier says it's too risky, I can't do it. So you go back to the beginning and you say, okay, what can I change? Well, maybe I won't shoot in Germany, so I won't have to pay plane tickets or put housing up there, I'll shoot locally. But then your tax credits go down. So now you're only getting $3 million in tax credits. Your cast stays the same. So maybe now you have to go and raise actually more equity. So you go back to the beginning and say, okay, well maybe I'll shoot here, lower the budget, but get a better cast. So now I'm getting more pre-sale value, but I'm still having, not getting as much tax credits in Europe. So now I have, $8 million and only have a $2 million shortfall, and now go an equity financier. And equity financier will finally say, okay, fine, you'll finally find someone who says, okay, $2 million, that's a good risk. Usually doesn't happen that fast. Usually takes 100 more times to go through that process, and then you finally find it. But you have to find that perfect formula to kind of figure out how to finance your film. It's not a one-step process. It takes thousands and thousands of steps. And that's it.
That was awesome. So I hope you guys enjoyed the panel very much. I don't know if we have time for questions, but I did want to just end off with one statement from Vayu and I, is that this is this can be a long process, and we just have a few tips for you guys that I think will save you guys a lot of heartbreak and will empower you further. Whenever Mike and I partner with someone or bring on someone, we will ask ourselves a couple of questions, like number one, do I like this person? Number two, do I trust this person? Number three, does this person do what they say they're going to do? And number four, has this person successfully done what I'm asking them to do now? And I think if you really ask those questions of yourselves, when you choose to partner with someone, because this is a long-term thing, you're not just going to work on a feature film for 6 months. It's 2, 3, 4, 5 years. It could be way longer. So I hope that will, this has given you guys a lot of tools and tips for how to move forward with great success.
Yeah, and we handpicked all of these amazing speakers here today, and they took out their time. So let's really give them a big hand.